Hello to all the attendees joining us for the last session of the day. My name is Anthony Zapata, Marketing Specialist at Hyperbaric. Today's session is titled The New Normal, How the COVID Era Has Accelerated Food Trends and Behaviors Now and Going into 2022. In the era of COVID-19, the speed and adoption of change have dramatically accelerated. That is being powered by social media, the direct interactions people are having with trusted friends and family, the use of technology, and mistrust in government. Layer on emerging pragmatic needs, fear, political and social unrest, along with the underlying planned changes in lifestyle that existed prior to the pandemic, and we have the perfect environment for rapid change. In this session, we have Steve Gundrum, Chairman and Chief Creative Officer of Matson, who will be touching on these trends and behavior changes. Welcome, Steve. I'd like to
Good
give
morning,
a
Anthony.
morning, Steve. I'd like to give a quick, brief bio on Steve. Since 1974, Steve has held food industry positions in sales, finance, marketing, and new product innovation. Since joining Matson in 1988, Steve has worked broadly across food, beverage, packaged good, restaurant, and food service categories, working for virtually every Fortune 500 food company. Steve has also created innovative industry techniques to enhance and accelerate the new product development process. These techniques include ways to enhance collaboration, consumer insights, and enable deeper consumer involvement in the new product development process. With that being said, I'd like to welcome Steve. And Steve, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, and thank you everyone for joining me today. So, thank you for that introduction. We'll get right into it. Uh, Absolutely goes without saying, this is a global event that's of a historical level that has changed culture, behavior, social habits, even in ways we haven't fully experienced yet and can only speculate. I'm going to touch on our forward vision for um, how this era of rapid change has reshaped the food industry and give you guys some things to think about going into 2022. So, because of the pandemic, consumer experiences, their wants and needs related to food have been very swift, very highly visible, and will have lasting effects well into the future. The impact on the food industry is, though, very much a continuum. It starts with agriculture and goes all the way through the choices that people are making around how they're cooking, the packaged goods that they buy, the restaurants they go to, and how they experience food away from home, and how it's really impacted their shopping habits. So I have 9 accelerated behaviors and trends I'll go through with you now. And, in the food industry, change is inevitable, but historically, it's actually very slow on a macro level compared to some other industries. Um, what was so unique about the COVID era is that the adoption and the speed of change was dramatically accelerated. Um, as Anthony mentioned, this was powered by social media, the direct interaction people are having with their trusted friends and family, definitely the use of technology, and there's been a lot of underlying mistrust in governments, and some government leaders. So you combine that with and layer on top of that trends that were already happening prior to the pandemic. There was a lot of political and social unrest. People were already making changes to their lifestyle that were all related to food. And when you bring that all together, you definitely had this perfect environment for some very rapid change. So one of the first things that happened, and in a very positive way, was the use of video chat technology to experience food. Um, Social interaction with friends and family using video had gone from rare or occasional to extremely common. Not only was it household to household or friend to friend, peer to peer, it also impacted brands and products and how they have interacted with consumers. Um, One of the big enablers was last Thanksgiving. The Zoom company removed its 40-minute limit on Thanksgiving, so families could spend as much time together as they wanted to enjoy a meal together. There's lots of shared cooking experiences where families will share a recipe and they'll prepare it at both ends and then experience the dinner together. Um, Canada did a really interesting experiment over Easter where they invited the entire nation to a virtual Easter dinner. So they really embraced the holiday, and they really embraced the notion of people using video chat to share the holiday together and to share those holiday meals together. And you can see on the lower right, one of the categories that was in many ways transformed by the use of video chat was the wine industry. And virtual tastings went from something that was just a notion to very commonplace, where for anniversaries, celebrations, friends getting together, birthdays, whatever the special occasion was, the wine industry was very happy to ship bottles or cases of flights of wine to various households and allow them to experience those together through a guided live stream tour from one of the winemakers. And we're going to see more and more video becoming part of the food experience that consumers will have with various brands and various categories. Travel, as we all know, got highly disrupted during the peak of the pandemic, and all travel and all these experiences outside of the home have already changed our relationship with food in a pretty significant way. Historically, travel, whether it be close to home or to another country, or maybe just across, to another state, has had a really impactful experience on how people experience new cuisine and food. Those travelers became the food influencers to many people through social media. And when they stopped traveling, they basically just disappeared during the COVID era. But what emerged was the proliferation of fast food reviewers with hundreds of millions of viewers. You may recognize some of these people. They're extremely popular on YouTube and Instagram. And the drive-through at QSR restaurants is really what saved the restaurant industry at the peak of the pandemic. And these food influencers, instead of being on the street and trying street food, were now very enthusiastically reviewing all kinds of new products that the fast food industry and fast casual restaurants were bringing to market. So they went from on the street basically to in the car. Another thing that happened was a truly mainstream awareness and a shift to a more plant-based diet and a more sustainable diet. This was already taking place prior to the pandemic. It was really gaining momentum over the 5 years prior to the start of the pandemic, but now the awareness is extremely, extremely broad. The momentum was there. Consumers had very high concerns over meat quality and meat safety. If you remember some of the headlines about what was happening at meat plants, In August of 2019, we can all tip our hat to Burger King. They launched the Impossible Whopper, which took plant-based burgers from plant-based food enthusiasts to the mass market, and they did it in an extremely positive way. McDonald's tested the PLT, plant lettuce and tomato, in Canada. They're bringing that to the US. Dunkin' Donuts launched an Beyond Meat breakfast sandwich. Starbucks partnered with Impossible to do their Impossible breakfast sandwich. And all the data that got published showed that plant-based food sales were just rising much faster than any other single category in the marketplace. Again, it's a behavior that existed before the pandemic, but really accelerated, especially as consumers had safety concerns around meat. The next thing was direct-to-consumer delivery of groceries and meals. Even since March of 2020, from the start of the pandemic, we saw a 40% increase in households using some kind of delivery service. The number of households that have now used a home delivery service for things other than pizza, you kind of have to put them in their own category, broke 60% of households. So it went from something that was occasional or not used very frequently to, truly just another way for consumers to, acquire their food, get their meals, do their grocery shopping. It had a very broad and immediate surge of activity. There's every indication now that this is going to extend well into the future. And the delivery app business, even since the start of this year, just in 6 months, basically, has doubled. So, who in this audience hasn't used DoorDash or Instacart or some of their competitors? For HPP, there's a very interesting element of this. You have this wonderful shelf life extending technology that enables the creation of products, both for consumers, for retail, but also food service operators, that they can trust that the food has been packaged and preserved in a way that doesn't use a lot of artificial ingredients, preserves the nutrition, and it's really perfect for a lot of these delivery businesses. The next part of direct-to-consumer is the zero emissions delivery of groceries and meals. There are 2 robotic companies that have had a big hand in this. One is Starship Technologies, and the other one is Nuro. And you may have recently seen some advertising around Domino's and Nuro. They were approved for delivery, driverless, on California streets, to bring pizza directly to your household by a driverless, autonomous delivery robot. It's a small car. You can see it next to this woman on the bike. It's about the size of a golf cart, and it allows this contact-free and emission-free delivery of, in this case, Domino's Pizza. But there are a lot of grocery chains that are experimenting with Nuro now. So we're just going to see a lot more in the future of robotic delivery systems doing the last mile to your house. Starship Industries and Technology is a very interesting company. They have now done 1.5 million deliveries as of April of this year, which is a 1,500% increase versus 2019. And where I'm located here in Northern California, we see them running around all over the place in Redwood City and other locations. You go on to any of the large college campuses, and you see Starship robots. They're the size of a very large cooler that you might take to the beach or on a boat or go camping. And they're driving around delivering groceries and meals to all kinds of households. The next trend, or the next behavior that took place was touchless. And I truly mean touchless everything, especially at the start of the pandemic. There was a lot of transmission fear that kicked in, and it kicked in early. We didn't know how was the virus spread. Was it on surfaces? Was it airborne? Did you require human contact? As we all know, there was a huge surge in demand for hand sanitizer. But really, what came to the rescue here was technology. And it certainly has solved a lot of issues, both short and long term. If you can see, I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I probably pay for 95 to 99% of my food and groceries, whether it's a restaurant or a grocery store, using my watch. There are, in the upper right there are waiter robots that became very popular quickly in Asia. So you would place your order from the table you were sitting at. The food would be prepared back of the house like any restaurant, but then you had a waiterless delivery system that would bring your meal directly to your table. There are some very clever applications of contactless dispensers for condiments, because restaurants were not sharing bottles of condiments any longer on tables. There were a lot of packets that were being used, but it was still much more economical for the restaurant operator to install some type of touchless dispenser. And then the robot industry again is looking to expand their presence in the marketplace, especially with QSR restaurants. And here's a photo of Flippy the robot, which was tested in White Castle and is starting to expand through a lot of different restaurant chains for making various products back in the house without the need for anyone to touch the food during preparation. Another thing that happened during the pandemic that is definitely going to have a lasting impact now is eating in instead of eating out. It truly was the rebirth of cooking and eating at home. Restaurant closures during the pandemic left people no choice whatsoever. They had to eat more at home. And what they turned to was comfort food. So the consumer packaged goods industry did and continues to do extremely well, even as consumers are slowly starting to return to restaurants. It was this emotional reconnection to a time of joy with family, freedom from the anxiety of COVID. And it really was the banana bread pandemic. We turn to Google Trends very often to look at the volume of search history, and you can see the spike there starting in April and May at the start of the pandemic. And there was a huge search volume on banana bread. You'd see the same things, surges on sourdough bread starters, homemade pizza. You can start picking out very specific categories, and you can see just these huge spikes in consumer behavior reaching out to the internet, looking for comfort food recipes so they could feel good about what they were eating and basically entertaining themselves at home. The next accelerated behavior has been the redefinition of what healthy eating is. And it's fundamentally at some level redefined, and it's really was the start of eating for immunity. This is most likely, looking back a couple of years from now, will be the #1 new trend that got kickstarted by the pandemic. There was a tremendous growing awareness of how vitamins A, C, E, polyphenols, antioxidants, zinc, especially vitamin D, any ingredient that ultimately had sound culinary logic would start to be used and adopted more frequently, across households. You combine that with the growing trend that was already taking place with probiotics, consumer interest in fermented foods, how fiber helps to manage your microbiome and strengthen cell structures. And it was another perfect storm that came together to grow this awareness around eating for immunity. And this is another area where HPP is a great technology that enables not only great hedonics in products, but it also maintains the nutrient profiles. So you've really got something that you can leverage here to help the consumer eat in the way that the pandemic has redefined what healthy is, and that's very much around eating for immunity. The other thing that's been impacted in a huge way is the definition of experiential eating. It's fundamentally been redefined. Historically, this was always driven by chefs. So this goes back to the fact that, for a very long stretch of time now, the consumer really has not, been able to experience chef-prepared food. Um, it it really required some technology and some changes in the supply chain to enable people to enjoy culinary or a new food experience. And it's really redefining a whole new generation of cooking from home foodies that will increase the use of technology. One of my favorite ones is butter chicken, where Indian food is slowly gaining a more than a threshold of curious consumers, and it's a very rapidly growing cuisine and ethnic food. This single butter chicken recipe has had 29 million views so far on YouTube. That's one recipe, one video. Um, the total number of cooking videos that have been viewed on YouTube over the past couple of years are, no one even has the numbers to describe it. It could be 1,000x the number of consumers and hundreds of thousands more hours of people watching cooking videos on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok now, which has gotten quite popular, versus watching cooking shows on TV. So it's really where a new generation of cook from home foodies are learning to cook and learning experiential eating in a whole new way. The other one is meal kits. And meal kits, which went on a very fast growth curve for a couple of years, and then they started to flatten out prior to the start of the pandemic, have really surged again. And part of it was, the consumer desire to avoid grocery shopping, staying out of public places. But a huge part of it was, how do you experience something new? How do you experience something different? And a lot of consumers turned to meal kits as a way to experience new food, new cuisine. The #1 food safety concern throughout the pandemic was, how safe is it to go to the grocery store? Um, the pandemic has accelerated big changes in grocery store design that will really have an influence, for at least the next decade. Up until this point, grocery store design has mostly been refinements to a very old format, and it was very much focused on cost reduction. Now it was focused on a whole new area. And what's really new, what really changed was the consumer shift from shopping, going into a store. We've all heard about going to Costco because it was a treasure hunt. So instead of going to the store to shop, they went to the store simply to pick up something or to buy. So it wasn't the best time to be launching new products because consumers were trying to get in and out as quickly as possible, and they were really seeking out comfort food. Their new safety protocols will have a long-lasting impact. This could be the end of the salad bar and self-service hot and food cold at retail. It will, if it's going to survive, it's going to have to be in a completely new way. And self-checkout use has skyrocketed during the pandemic, and the consumer has gotten very accustomed to it. It's convenient, it's fast. You combine it with contactless payments of some kind, and it's a great opportunity for the grocery industry to adapt to what the consumer needs. There's an element here that HPP could play a part in too, because HPP enables these really clean label products that consumers can trust to be safe to eat no matter how they are purchased. So there could be this opportunity to, work around the self-service salad bar and hot and food cold. And it's certainly something you guys should, be aware of. Continuing with how safe is it to grocery shop, big tech stepped in a huge way. One of the most interesting plays has been Amazon, of course, buying Whole Foods, but then Amazon opened Amazon Go stores, which has the self checkout is all done via cameras and RFID technology. You simply walk into an Amazon Go store, you pick up the products you want, and you walk out, and it automatically does all the transactions for you. They also have the Dash Cart, which they're testing down in Southern California, and they're going to open some new Dash Cart stores. So if you use Amazon, even an Amazon Echo device, where you're asking Alexa to put products on your shopping list, when you get to an Amazon Dash Cart store, you simply log into the cart and your shopping list will pop up on a screen right on the shopping cart, and it will even direct you around the store and show you where to pick up your groceries. So again, this is all about minimizing contact with others in the store and making it more convenient. What was a food safety concern is really going to fundamentally change a lot of thinking around how we should interact with the grocery stores that we shop at. And to wrap this up is, now that we have widely available vaccinations and we're ending many restrictions, today is the 15th of June. This is the last day of most restrictions here in California. And just what does that mean? What is that going to do for all the changes that have taken place during the pandemic? It's definitely going to be a catalyst for more rapid change and recovery. And there are really three things we're going to look at very closely now, from now to the end of the year and in 2022. The first and the biggest impact will be eating away from home. Restaurants will be most immediately impacted. There's a huge pent-up demand for socialization, and so much of that took place eating away from home with friends and family, and consumers are anxious to get back to using restaurants as a meeting place and for socializing with their friends. So that will be the biggest impact, and I'm sure most of you have seen this already. The second one would be workplace eating. especially in really high density urban areas where there are big corporate dining programs. And, as there is this return to the workplace, and we'll have to see by the end of the year just how big that is, what flex working looks like, what hybrid working environments look like, a combination of working in an office and working at home. But corporate dining, and the whole B&I industry, college campuses would be under this category. They're going to have a quick recovery here because of vaccinations and the end of restrictions. But for retail grocery, the biggest one is going to be the return to shopping versus buying. Consumers will go back into grocery stores. They will be lingering. The length of their visits will be longer. They will be looking for new products on the shelf. They will be price comparing. They will be seeking out things that are new and fun. I just read that Costco is soon going to have in-store demos again. So this whole notion of just buying what you need and only buying comfort food is really going to start to open up as consumers start to shop versus buying. The speed bump here is the lingering threat of COVID-19 variant outbreaks this fall. It could slow everything down. We'll just have to see where we are by the end of the year. But right now, from everything we've seen, the wind is at their backs, and these are the three areas that are going to have a very quick recovery. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful in making you think about the future and the next few years ahead. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me, steve@matsonco.com. Send me an email. I'm happy to get back to you with more information and answer any questions you have. Thanks again. Anthony, back to you.
Thanks, Steve. Very, very insightful presentation. Let me get your presentation out of here. Yeah, you definitely share some interesting trends that have taken place in the last year. Many of these trends have also been seen in the HPP industry. You pointed out a shift to a more plant-based diet, increase in delivery. We've seen a major increase in e-commerce, especially with cold-pressed juices. You do get that shelf life extension.
Sure.
You can deliver that directly fresh to the consumer. You pointed out contactless everything. A major innovation we've seen is a Patainer with a company by the name of Patainer, a packaging company. They've developed a HPP juice keg, which we'll start seeing on retail shelves. So yeah, I know you also touched on food safety. And lastly, I did want to point out those immunity boosting products such as functional shots. So appreciate you touching on those trends. Looking forward to the updated deck that we'll be able to see as we near the end of the pandemic. I did want to let know the audience, if they'd like to learn more about Matson, they can visit Matson at www.mattsonco.com. And with that being said, that wraps up our session and event. I'd like to thank all the attendees for joining us for HPP Innovation Week 2021. We look forward to continue collaborating with you all in the future. As a reminder, all the sessions will be made available on demand for the next month. If you have any questions after the event, feel free to contact us at marketing@hyperbaric.com. Well, I really appreciate you, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you, Anthony. Yep, you're welcome.